You're lying in bed and you just did the thing again. The thing you swore off. And right now, in this specific silence, you're running the math on how many times you've been in this exact position. Same ceiling. Same version of yourself you don't want to be. And what's getting to you tonight isn't that you fell. You've made peace with falling before. What's getting to you is that the promise was real. You weren't performing contrition. Something in you genuinely meant it when you said never again, and it still didn't hold. That's the part your brain can't file anywhere. Because if the sincerity was real and the outcome didn't change, you start wondering if the problem is just you. You know what the advice sounds like. Pray harder. Get accountability. Memorize the verse that matches. And you know what it feels like to have done all of that and still end up back here, staring at the ceiling at 1 a.m, trying to decide whether to pray or just go to sleep because you're not sure the prayer means anything you can trust anymore. Nobody told you the most important part. The part Scripture has actually been pointing at the whole time. Not how to stop the cycle. Why the cycle keeps working. Once you see that clearly, the thing that's been running this, the shame, the self-accusation, that whole engine, it starts to lose its grip. Not because you're excused, because you're finally aimed at the right problem. Paul writes something in Romans 7 that most people treat like a confession. I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. He keeps going. He says he has the desire to do what is good, but he can't carry it out. The evil he doesn't want is exactly what he keeps doing. But read what Paul is actually doing there. He's not beating himself up. He's not repenting harder. He's watching the machine run. He's stepping back and studying himself the way you'd study a system that keeps producing the same output no matter what you feed into it. And his conclusion isn't try harder. His conclusion is that something is happening here that sincerity alone can't touch. Which changes the question entirely. Why can't I stop? Assumes the problem is effort. Effort is the handle. You can tighten the handle as hard as you want. If the pipe behind the wall is leaking, the handle was never going to fix it. James names what's behind the wall in chapter 1. Each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. Notice the sequence. Desire first, then behavior. Which means every commitment you've ever made to stop the behavior was aimed at what you do. The thing underneath, the desire, was never touched. It kept running. You were just fighting what it produced. And this is the part that might feel wrong even hearing it. But I need you to sit with it for a second. That sin is doing something for you. Not morally. Functionally. It's meeting a need that nothing else in your life is currently meeting. It's numbing something you haven't figured out how to feel. Or it's the only space where a specific kind of pressure finally releases. That sounds like making excuses for the thing you hate. It isn't. It's drawing a map. And until you have the map, you're just making commitments in the dark and wondering why morning keeps looking the same. Desire doesn't move through discipline. Paul wrote to the Ephesians about this, and he laid it out in 3 steps, not 2. Put off the old self. Be made new in the way you think. Then put on the new self. Most of us skip the middle step entirely. We swing from the old behavior to the commitment to stop, and we wonder why it doesn't hold. The middle step is the honest examination. The part where you stop fighting the behavior long enough to ask what it was solving, what it was covering, what would have to be true for you not to need it anymore. That question doesn't come naturally in the crisis moment when everything is loud. It comes in the honest season, when the desire is quiet and you can actually sit with something instead of just reacting to it. That's where the exit gets built. Not at 2 a.m. when you're white-knuckling it. Before that. Garrett had the same blow-up with his kids for years. Not every day, not even every week, but regularly enough that his 11-year-old had started to flinch when the tension in the house rose. Just a small thing around the eyes, barely visible. Garrett noticed. Noticing made it worse. He'd apologize sincerely every time and mean every word of it. He'd pray about it. He tried the breathing techniques, the counting, the leaving the room. It would get better for a stretch. Then some ordinary Tuesday would come along. The dishwasher wouldn't be unloaded. Someone would ask him the wrong question while he was standing at the counter still in his work clothes, and his voice would fill the kitchen the way it always did. Same volume. Same silence after. His daughter standing very still by the refrigerator. The shift came from a different question. one he'd been avoiding because he suspected the answer. Not what sets him off. Not what to do in the moment. What does losing control give me that I can't get any other way? He sat with that for weeks. The honest answer, when it finally surfaced, was that the blow-up was the one moment in his house where everyone stopped what they were doing and paid attention to him. In a home where he felt consistently invisible, where his needs came last by default and nobody seemed to notice, the rage was what made the room stop. He hated that about himself. But once he said it out loud, the whole picture changed. The anger was doing something for him. It was getting him seen in a house where he'd learned to disappear. And once he could name that, he could finally fight the actual thing instead of the shape of it. He didn't fix everything overnight. But for the first time in years, he knew what he was actually fighting, and that turned out to be the thing that mattered. The cycle starts to lose its grip the moment you can name what it was doing for you. That's the work Scripture was pointing at the whole time. The damage you do to yourself through a cycle like this is one thing. What about the damage someone else did to you? The person who never acknowledged it, never owned it, and probably never will. Scripture is more direct about that one than most of us want it to be.